Afternoon. Welcome to the Del Norte County Transportation Commission. This meeting is this day, February 5th, 2019. It's 3 o'clock. We're going to call this meeting to order. Please take the roll for us.
Okay. Commissioner Fallman?
Here.
Commissioner Hemmingson is not present. Commissioner Kine?
Here.
Policy Advisor Robertson?
Here.
Commissioner Howard?
Present.
Commissioner Inscore? Here. And Commissioner Gitlin?
Here. All right. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to take public comment. Anyone wishing to make public comment regarding matters either on or off the agenda and within the Commission's jurisdiction may do so at this time. However, the Commission is not permitted to take action on non-agendized items. Okay. We're going to go ahead and move on then to the election of the chairperson and vice chairperson. Tamara, there's some policy on this one, if I remember correctly.
There is. The chair and vice chair positions rotate from city to county annually, and that's in our bylaws that requires us to do so.
Very good then. This time then I'd like to take any nominations for chairman, and recalling that it is for someone representing the city.
I nominate Alex Fallman.
Seconded.
We do have a motion and a second. And is there any other nominations at this time? Seeing none, please pull a vote.
Commissioner Kine?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Gitlin?
Yes.
Commissioner Inscore?
Yes.
Commissioner Fallman?
Yes.
Very good. It's all yours.
Okay. Do we need to change seats at all? Or?
No.
You're pretty much in pole position
this
right now,
works.
so go for it.
Okay.
And you can take up the vice chairman position.
Okay. Well, tonight, we'll now take nominations for vice chairman for 2019. Keep in mind this has to be a member from the Board of Supervisors.
I'll do it.
I'll nominate Chris Howard.
Very good. Thank you.
I'll second the nomination. Any other nominations? Okay. Pull the vote.
Okay. Commissioner Fallman?
Yes.
Commissioner Kine?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Gitlin?
Yes.
Commissioner Inscore?
Yes.
Okay, we'll now adjourn to the Policy Advisory Committee and consider the consent agenda. Items considered or are considered routine in nature and voted on in one motion. Under consent agenda, we have item A, the minutes of December 4th, 2018. Any public comment on the consent agenda? Okay.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Call the roll. Call the vote.
Point of order. Do we have a quorum here, Tammy?
Yes.
Tamara? I'm going to abstain because I was not at that meeting. So I want to make sure I did read the minutes, but I prefer not to approve something I wasn't present at. So I just want to make sure you have a quorum here.
Okay, continue with the vote.
Okay. Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Inscore?
Yes.
And Commissioner Gitlin?
Abstain.
Okay. Commissioner Fallman?
Yes.
Commissioner Kine?
Yes.
Okay. Consent agenda passes. We'll move on to the policy and administrative portion of the agenda. First up is item B, 2018-19 overall work program. Tamara?
So this is the 1920 overall work program, and it is unusual to have an agenda where we don't have action items on the agenda, but given the timing of the work program requirements with the state, this is our opportunity to go through it thoroughly. In our next meeting, I'm anticipating that the work program will be on the consent agenda. If we review it and then adopt it in the same meeting, it doesn't actually give anybody an opportunity to provide true input. We need that time to, discuss the work and agree on what our work for 2019-20 is going to be. We do have, I am going to recommend a change in this work program as we go through it, and we'll get to that in a bit. And I'm going to do this quickly, but please stop me if there's an area where you would like for me to be more thorough, because it's, of course, easy to slow down and go through it. So work element A is a standard work element. We have this work in this manner just about every year. A few things change. The nature of the last chance grade work changes. In this year, there is going to be additional last chance grade work because the California Transportation Commission has agreed to come to the area for a town hall meeting, and that's going to be a significant portion of that town hall. We'll talk about that later in the agenda. The 2019 economic and demographic profile is also doesn't have any consultant funds. The RCRC, what is that, Rural Counties Coalition for the state, I can't remember it, the acronym, they are putting out and have actually just put out the 2018 economic and demographic profiles for all rural counties. It's a modified profile. It doesn't include all of the things that our profile includes, and it comes out, well, this one came out almost a year after our 2018, well, about a year after our 2018 profile came out. So it's a little bit delayed, but if we get the same information through a different source, I think that there's no real reason for us to fund it a second time. But that's going to take some work with the Center for Economic Development at Chico to get the profile in the way that we need it. So down the road, we may end up adding some funding to this to have an expanded profile. One of the areas of biggest difference is in the tribal area. They don't record the fishing areas that we have. So there are some areas that are special to our community where we collect data that isn't in the more generic report that the RCRC contracted for CSU Chico to provide. So we're still kind of feeling our way through this, how this might change, and that's an area of difference for this work program potentially for next year. Work element B is essentially unchanged. That's the development and the tracking of the work program throughout the year. It includes work program amendments, RPA invoicing, the quarterly reporting that I do to the state. Work element C, our public participation, is essentially unchanged. The public participation includes our meetings, it includes our partnerships and planning agreements, including the Rural Counties Task Force meetings, those kinds of things, and then our website and crowdsourcing work. The Regional Transportation Improvement Program is on a 2-year cycle, and this work element is very specific to developing and maintaining the Transportation Improvement Program. It includes planning, programming, and monitoring funds, and is focused on that area, tracking our STIP-funded project on US Highway 199 and the litigation that's associated with that. The TDA and fiscal management, this is an administrative work element and allows for common administrative duties. Keeping the records for the commission, that sort of thing, the document retention, the filing, all of that sort of tedious work that's really important when somebody calls you up and says, I need a whatever. It also includes our audits under fiscal management. Next year is, we only have one audit next year. This year was a double audit year, and we'll have our performance audit in the next couple of months back to the commission. So this is less funded than the current year because we only have one audit due in next fiscal year. And then the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council support is a small but important item. We don't divert transit funds for non-transit purposes, but we still are required to have a Social Services Transportation Advisory Council and to meet annually, adopt a resolution for unmet needs, and that's what this work element covers. The SAFE, or Service Authority for Freeway Emergencies, is the function of our call boxes throughout the county. So that's what our SAFE funds are. And the 2020 Regional Transportation Plan, this is initiating the 2020 Regional Transportation Plan so we can add funds to this in the next year and complete it by 2020. So this work, as you can see in the last line, this will have additional funds for it. I'm anticipating that it'll cost about $90,000 total. It's a rough estimate. I didn't want folks to think that we were going to produce a regional transportation plan for $22,000. So there's a second year of work that we'll be doing with this. The Regional Transportation Plan really is the core work of the Transportation Commission. The SB 743 Implementation Plan is a new work element in a discretionary area, except that SB 743 is now law. And so we really need to implement this with the new regulations for SB 743, and that is establishing the vehicles miles traveled threshold. We will also be maintaining our level of service data, because level of service is what ties to the city and county general plans. So we really need both. The VMT thresholds are mostly focused around urban areas and some funding sources that they receive that we don't receive, but the law still applies to us, and we still need to collect the initial data to enable us to move forward. The reason why we're doing this early on is because, well, this isn't so early, but we are one of the first rural regions to be tackling this work, and it's important for us to get this done before we do our 2020 Regional Transportation Plan update. So order is important on some of this, and this is one of the areas where the order is important. On safety and security, this is the work element that my recommendation is to withdraw. We talked about this in the TAC meeting a week ago, and the TAC said, you know, let's leave this to the commission whether to include it or not include it. But since that meeting, the harbor staff missed that meeting last week, and we were hoping to more thoroughly vet it with them. But since then, I have talked with Charlie Helms. I've talked with our new county OES staff, along with Jay Serena. Caitlin Goins, I'm not sure I have her last name right. Sorry, Caitlin. But we agree that there isn't a jurisdiction that is taking a look at this project who really needs to own it. And we did in 2011 a pedestrian evacuation time analysis, or PETA, and that document didn't reach any conclusion that suggests that a trail, which some folks are advocating for, is going to be a solution or an appropriate solution or even meet the purpose and need of the project. So what I was thinking is, well, if we need to sit down and talk about this, I can, you know, maybe convene some meetings, get everybody in the same room, but really it's not my role to do this. I think that it's more the role of county OES. If the harbor would like to provide the leadership for the harbor area and invite me to those meetings, happy to go. We don't need a work element for that, any kind of focus on that. But until somebody comes to the Transportation Commission and says, we have a need, here's our transportation need for safety and security, then you know, we don't have a stake. There's nobody who's owning this, this imaginary trail or whatever the solution is. And so my recommendation, with a general agreement with the county staff, the harbor staff, is to pull this work element, move this money. My recommendation is to move this money into our Regional Transportation Plan update, which is going to need a significant amount of more money anyway, and just set this aside until somebody has a project to propose to move forward, or even, you know, a planning process to move forward. So it's, you know, I think it's just it's not my role in the community to do this, and I'm not even sure that it needs to be done right now, but after talking to folks, I just think we should pull this. So moving on, Elk Valley Crossroad Corridor Plan is a grant-funded project of the County of Del Norte, and we have initiated this project just now. We're just now initiating this project. It'll be done by the end of next year. Again, RPA grant funds. And I thought there was one more. Oh, I have version 1 in front of me. So that explains it. The other, do you guys have version 2 in front of you? Chris?
I have
Okay.
version 1. I have version 1 on my packet.
I think I'm seeing version 1 also.
You have the version 1 also?
The attachment,
Okay,
yeah.
so let me tell you that the additional work element, sorry about that. It's like, I'm looking, I'm going, this is, oh, community engagement, Wonder Stump Road. Did I just miss it? Yeah. Okay, all right, yeah, I just went over it. So the community engagement for Wonder Stump Road is a project that's proposed by the county, and the community engagement project is really a community convening of the Wonder Stump Road area. And the county has significant challenges, even with basic maintenance on that road, because the roadway is so narrow. They're having to do handwork in the ditches. There's safety issues for the employees. There's, who are working in the area. So the county's proposing that we convene some meetings and figure out some solutions with the community involvement. So we put this in here to accommodate a series of public meetings. The funding amount we need to do some additional work on that funding amount, and when we get to that, we'll probably reduce this funding amount and move the money to the Regional Transportation Plan update. But that has yet to be decided. We're not quite sure of the scope of work on this. We're still fleshing that out. So sorry I skipped that step. And that's it.
Tamara, a couple of questions. What are you pulling? Which one are you pulling?
The safety and security,
All right, and that's
Aye.
number.
that's my
Well, which
recommendation.
letter is that? I'm looking at.
Aye.
Aye. I'm sorry. Okay, so that subtracts from the 488,000.
I'm recommending to move that money over to the Regional Transportation Plan
When there's a project.
update. It's in here now, so we would move that $5,000 to work element G. And so the consultant area of that would be $25,000 instead of $20,000, and it would just give us a chance to get a little bit more work done in the next fiscal year.
So the numbers don't change. The numbers, the amount of money allocated doesn't change.
No.
Okay, so I know this is, I'm not even sure if this is an accurate question. All of this is no SB1 monies are in this proposal, right? No SB1 monies are in this.
Right. There are no SB1 funds in the planning process that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I'm
And
thinking
just-
it through. There are no SB1 money. There's no SB1 money
In the
this
planning
work-
process.
in this work program.
So that would mean this is your budget, essentially.
Right.
It's not-
This is our budget and our work for the 1920 year.
Okay. Is this number, give me an example of what this compares with, let's say, the planning budget for last year?
It's about the same.
Oh, it's about this. So
Yeah.
this is pretty much a constant number?
It is.
Okay. And the one other question I had was the 7,000 for last chance grade. There are no other monies allocated? This is for the town hall at the end of the year?
No, this is staff time only.
Okay.
So this is staff time only, my time only, for focus time on last chance grade. There are all kinds of other organizations working on last chance grade, and sometimes I join in those meetings in other work areas, but this is basically my time, my effort to move last chance grade forward, and it's increased staff time from last year because I anticipate a lot of staff time associated with the CTC Town Hall.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions for Tamara? Public comment? Okay. Tamara, your recommendation is to have us direct staff to prepare the overall program. Do we need to vote on that, or is that just a consensus?
It's just a consensus.
Okay.
This is, again, this is a thorough review, your opportunity to provide input, and then I'll package the whole thing. There's a lot of dialogue that goes with this. It'll be a complete package in the next DNLTC meeting.
Okay.
Good with it.
Anything from Consent? Nope. All right. Then it looks like we got consensus then.
Any comment on pulling the work element, as I recommended?
The pedestrian.
Yeah, that,
I'm fine with that. I mean, I think more involvement from the harbor seems appropriate.
well,
It's directly related to being in the harbor.
right, and to be fair to the Harbor District, they have their own work efforts. They have their own work efforts that they're moving forward with. It's not this work effort. They have their own workout efforts. They are by no means disregarding this challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's on them to communicate that to the public. If the public weighs in to the Harbor Commission and they decide that this is something that they really want to explore and want to come back to us with a project, then I can see the point of you allocating some time and resources, but for us to drive it, I agree. I don't think that this is the appropriate driver.
And just to, for all of you and to understand the process, what typically happens is that would come to the TAC. So Harbor would go to the Technical Advisory Committee, we'd hash it out there at the staff level, and they would send a recommendation to the commission.
Yeah,
Exactly.
makes sense.
Okay.
One thing, the link to that, and I've seen a paper copy of it, but the link to it in our agenda, it's a dead link to that pedestrian thing.
Yeah, it may not have worked in my transferring it over.
If you could email that.
Absolutely.
So I have
Yep.
because I can't find my paper copy of it. So.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do that. It's also under planning documents. It's also under planning documents on my website.
Oh, okay. Well, then
Yeah.
don't worry about it. I'll get it there. Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
just for reference
Yeah.
point, so that when community people do talk about it, it's nice to be able to say there's been research done on this. So,
Yeah, planning documents on my website, it's right there.
perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay. That's it then. All right, moving on to discussion items. We'll start with the California Transportation Commission Town Hall meeting.
So, thank you, Airport. We're in a good opportunity to have the California Transportation Commission come to a town hall meeting in our area, and they've agreed to do so at the beginning of November. And I'm very excited about this. They have one rural town hall meeting a year, and they've been doing this for just a few years now, so we're early on in their system. And I think that there are several things that have come together to make this possible and interesting at the state level. One of them is the Last Chance Grade project, of course, because they hear a lot about it. They have freely acknowledged the amount of stakeholders that we have in the stakeholder process. They've been impressed with the letters of recommendation that have been collected for funding the environmental phase in the past, and I think they're very interested in such a huge project, and that it's a huge project that impacts really the whole, well, most of the state, certainly the north half of the state. We have Commissioner Howard has been working with a member of the public to coordinate potentially some private flights for them. We have a rough agenda that will be half the members who come up will take a tour of US 199, and the other half will fly over Last Chance Grade, either a private airplane, helicopter, weather dependent kind of thing, and then they'll switch, and then one half will go up, the other half will go up 199, and the first half will go take the flight over Last Chance Grade. They want to see what's in our community, and they want it to keep it positive, informative, and unique to our region. There are some things that we have, like storm damage, that is very easy to access for the state transportation commissioners in a way that it isn't easy to access from other regions. Even Bay Area, I mean, driving and looking at storm damage, I mean, here it's, you know, you can walk there in 5 minutes. So there are some things, being in a rural community that we have, that I think are going to be very positive for them to see. Our partners are going to be involved. Our partners in Oregon are our state representative, Mike McGuire, is keenly interested. The CTC staff went and talked to him about the potential for this meeting when I raised it, and he was very positive and encouraging. So thank you, Mike McGuire, for you know, raising his hand and saying, yes, yes, go do that. And so that there's a lot of potential for moving this forward. Right now we have a tentative reservation for the entire Requa Inn, which is an area where I think that they'll be comfortable. They'll have to drive over Last Chance Grade to get to town. So, you know, there's on-the-ground viewing of that also. But I don't know if any of you stayed there, but that, you know,
one of my favorites.
It's just, they're very accommodating. And I think to give them a unique experience in our unique community, it's a family-owned inn, it's a Native American-owned inn, and it's a big historic part of our community. So I just reserved all of the rooms, and I think that we'll need all of them. So we'll see how it comes together.
How many people do you anticipate coming up for this event?
I don't know. The anticipation is perhaps 6 commissioners, 6 of the state commissioners. This isn't a meeting where they have votes. It's not that kind of a voting meeting. It's an informative session, and it's our opportunity to tell them or show them about our community. Oftentimes the town hall meetings are 4.5 hours long. I want to keep ours to 2.5 hours. You know, maybe even down to 2. I think everybody would appreciate that, mostly because we're in a community where we can show them instead of telling them. And I just feel really strongly that showing them is going to be much more powerful than telling them. So we're just at the front end of gathering the information for this, and we'll move it forward as it comes along.
Very good. Tamara, you may want to do outreach to Calor. He's always interested in getting his hours and taking people up in the helicopter. He's done that a couple of times. So he'll be very receptive, I think.
Yeah, we're working on all of those details. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for that item? Okay.
No, this is, Chairman, this is a long time in the making. Mm-hmm. It's a request that we started making last year, early January. Glad our director was able to follow through and get this to fruition. It's a lot of effort that goes into this, but more importantly, we've got a massive amount of advocacy to do here for all us elected leaders, specifically with 6 or potentially more commissioners that show up, but in particular Gilmetti and ARP, who are Northern California representatives on the commission. We need to absolutely focus time on them. They've been representatives on the commission for as long as I could remember, and they are ideal to advocate for Northern California issues and have done for us so in the past, especially with Highway 199 and 197. So yeah, just really appreciate your time and efforts on this, Tamara.
I think they will be surprised at the true meaning of the word narrow.
And northern.
Yeah, northern.
And northern.
Well, yeah, before we move on to the next discussion item, I just want to thank you for everything that you've done with this, Tamara, bringing these people up here, you know, getting them into the airport and seeing all that the community has to offer. I mean, it's tremendous. People don't come here for meetings, and that's really a big step. So I appreciate it.
Right. And I must say, you know, Chair Howard, who was our chair when I was sort of developing this, has been a huge help and encouragement. So
good.
We've been working collaboratively on this as my board chair.
Excellent. All right, safety projects on US 199 and 101.
Rex? Mr. Jackman?
Or Jesse.
Oh, sorry, Rex.
I'm Jesse Robertson.
Sorry, I had a throwback moment.
I've worked with Rex for
Sorry, Rex.
Going on 18 years.
Sorry, Jesse.
So I didn't get any written statements from our traffic safety office, but I did have a chance to speak with David Morgan, our chief, and he had a conversation with CHP about a month ago, and he should be receiving more up-to-date traffic safety incidents on state routes in Del Norte County throughout the entire county. He has yet to receive an update, but his information typically is about a year and a half behind schedule because a lot of the police reports take some time to be compiled and uploaded into a statewide database, the SWITRs, and that's the kind of the basis for our determinations of where these safety locations are. I think periodically, I don't know if it's on a quarterly basis or semi-annual basis, they routinely do analysis to see if there's any hotspots locations where there's kind of a reoccurrence of similar types of collisions. And I think if there's a pattern that it emerges, they can use that funding to go and apply for statewide safety funds, and that's how our safety projects get built. District 1, I think, has probably a higher proportion of safety projects than any of the other districts in the state. So I think David Morgan's been really successful at bringing more dollars to the table. That said, we still have to justify, and request those safety dollars. He has yet to see any of this updated 2017 data, which would include injury and property damage type collisions. He typically gets notified anytime that there's a fatality on state highways, but he in terms of total numbers and where all these collisions may be taking place, those are some things that he typically has to wait about a year and a half after the fact to really take any action on some of these things. So he's trying to improve upon that. He has a number of projects. I think at this time, I think there's two significant ones on US Route 199. One of them is at Post Mile, I think 2 to 6. There's a curve there, and there's been a few incidents where there's been some vehicles that there's a very narrow or maybe no kind of inboard shoulder, and vehicles, they've had their wheels run off the pavement, overcorrected, and there is not a guardrail to prevent them from leaving the roadway. And I guess a number of vehicles have ended up down in the Smith River. So that at that project, I believe that's around Post Mile 10.5. There should be a guardrail extension out in that area to keep people on the roadway, keep them out of the river. And then there's another one further up. I thought I saw Post Mile 30 on 199. But I did get a printout saying...
Yeah, I thought it was 20.
I think it's in the 22
Yeah, I think it was 20 to 20.6. It was a curve realignment at a location where there's been some injury and fatality accidents, and it's about an $8 million project, safety project, that they're just looking at right now. So it's very early on, but I think that they're looking at that.
Sure, and he has some staff that are starting to write project descriptions, so they're preparing kind of the justification for funding. But at that location, they're looking to shave back the hillside. It's not as extensive of a hillside in some of those other locations where there's been a lot of rock falls over the years, like around Patrick's Creek. I think there's a lot of rock slides, and Caltrans has had to go in there and do a lot of scaling to get up there and stabilize, and maybe even put up some of those cable nettings. But yeah, I think it's Post Mile 22, and I can follow up with Tamara on the exact location of that. But that was another curve correction, trying to straighten out some of those curves and make that a little bit more navigable. So
there's an additional project that I've heard about on Highway 101 from the Elk Valley Crossroad intersection going into Smith River, and I don't know the nature of that project. I think it's might end up being a shoulder widening, even though the shoulders are pretty substantial for our area there. In that dark area of the trees where they've made it a safety corridor, have daylight headlight section in there. I think that they're still seeing series of accidents in that darker corridor. So I was hoping to get an email from David Morgan. I sent him an email last week. I was hoping to get something in writing before this meeting. Clearly he's not ready, doesn't have the information yet to provide that. So these are just, this is forward-looking work on the state highway system.
Sure. Sometime back, we had a discussion about pedestrians trying to cross 101, Fisherman's Restaurant in that area, and there were some pretty close calls. Is this an area that's going to be looked at again in terms of looking for a solution, or is that a non-existent problem? We received a spate of complaints, and then I don't know, is this something that's going to be looked into again?
That's actually in that harbor area. The Transportation Commission, the county, the harbor staff, Caltrans, all met about a year ago, and we roughed out a way to connect the harbor trail over the ditch where that sort of fake bridge is right now, over that very deep ditch. And then Caltrans has agreed to put a pedestrian crossing in that area, some kind of pedestrian activated crossing. We're probably 2 years out before that project moves forward, but the purpose and need of that project is sound, and we have a strategy, a collaborative strategy with the harbor for moving that forward.
Now, was this one of these illuminated crosswalks?
I don't think that there are any details for the crosswalk yet determined.
Okay.
Jesse, welcome.
Sorry.
Going to be filling some big shoes here. Kevin was always piled on lots of topics specific to these areas, 199 and 101. I'll give you some time to catch up, but we did have some conversations prior to your arrival with Matt Brady, Brad Manham, David Morgan, specific to Highway 199 and some areas around Hardscrabble Creek that the Caltrans was going to go out and do some immediate skid testing on. We've had fatalities there this year. We've had several rollovers, and most recently a head-on between two semi-trucks at that location. We need to know what's going on there, along with the increased incidents on Highway 199 this year just seem to be above and beyond what we've seen in the past. Could be caused from high rates of speed, drug abuse. We don't know what's going on. We sometimes see the accident reports, we sometimes don't. But what we do know is that there should have been a report generated in December specific to Hardscrabble Creek. So if you could follow up with Brad and David and Matt on where we're at with that skid test at Hardscrabble Creek, I'd appreciate it.
Any other matters or any other comments for safety projects on 199 and 101? Okay. Commissioner comments and reports. Start with Mr. Inscore. Nothing. Ready? Ron? Chris?
None at this time.
None at this time. Okay, well, just real briefly then, yeah, I'd want to welcome some new faces. It's Jesse. Good to meet you, Jesse. Welcome Supervisor Gitlin back to these meetings, and then Mayor Inscore from the city as well. Okay.
He's back.
We're going to adjourn now as the Policy Advisory Committee and reconvene as the Delaware Local Transportation Commission, and by polled vote approve and adopt the actions taken by the Policy Advisory Committee and items listed above. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Would you please call the vote?
Commissioner Gitlin?
Yes.
Commissioner Keim?
Yes.
Commissioner Inscore?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
And Chair Paulman?
Yes. Okay. With that, we will adjourn to the next regular meeting on Tuesday, March 5th 2019 at 3 p.m. here in the Flint Center.
All right, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.